Book your wedding day with us. Salon DNA 415-956-1909.
Hello, and welcome to California Up Now. This show is dedicated to the news and the people that make our Golden State great. Our guest today is Seth Hemmelgarn. Seth is a reporter for the Bay Area Reporter. He's been following gay pride in San Francisco for many years, and he's going to talk to us about security at the Gay Pride Festival in the wake of the Orlando shooting. Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. We want to talk about the emotional impact of Orlando. This was a horrible thing that happened, 49 people dead. Is there enough love in San Francisco to conquer this hate?
I think so. I think clearly everyone is heartbroken about what happened in Orlando. I mean, just walking over here today, I walked by the intersection of 18th and Castro Street where they have the memorial outside of the bank, and there are just so many pictures and flowers and candles. I don't recall ever seeing a memorial that large, at least in recent years, and every time I've walked by there in the past week, people have been taking pictures and just standing and taking it in, and writing on the sidewalks to remember the people that died and were injured last week. I think San Francisco has been through awful, tragic things in the past, the assassination of Harvey Milk, and the people who died from AIDS. This city has been through a lot, and I think everyone is just absolutely shattered over what happened in Orlando. And I think also people are very resilient, and the people that I've spoken with, a lot of people who say basically this will make us stronger, and we have to carry on for the people in Orlando, and not just Orlando, but LGBT people everywhere.
And so the San Francisco Police Department has come out and said they are not going to have increased security measures for the parade, like a bag check or metal detectors. Do you feel safe at the festivities, and do you worry about the safety of others?
I do worry about that, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I don't feel totally safe at San Francisco Pride. I don't spend a lot of time there, but I think when you're at Pride, you are in a huge open area where no one is really checking who's coming in and where people are coming from, what they have with them, and I don't think it's just Pride. I think anytime you're out on the street, you kind of have to be mindful of where you are. So and when you bring 1 million people approximately into that space, I think there are definitely going to be risks. I'm not saying that if you had metal detectors and bag checks that would totally guarantee safety. I think there would still be a risk.
Is this a time for people to be proud and show their colors, or is this a time to have a low profile?
I think it's absolutely a time to be proud. I think it might be a little bit different for us in San Francisco. I think the risk is not as high for people in the community in San Francisco.
And that's because you believe people are more open-minded and accepting of LGBT lifestyle.
Yeah, in San Francisco. I mean, we're so strong in this city, and we've been here for so long. That's not to say that homophobia does not exist in San Francisco, because it does. And gay people sometimes are still attacked in San Francisco. But I do think it's a time, I think it's always a time to be proud, and to remember that maybe remember that we do have the benefit of living in San Francisco, and I think it's easy for us to forget that other people in other places are still struggling, just holding hands on the streets, or just to be who they are in the open, at work, at school. I think it's still really hard for a lot of people in other places. So I think we need to kind of help them however we can.
And do you think that the gay community in Orlando is somewhat different than San Francisco? How would you compare those two communities?
I personally have never been to Orlando. It sounds like the community there is pretty strong. Again, I think it's hard to think of another place that is as gay as San Francisco, but I think it's maybe this will make them, maybe this will, I don't want to say this will help them, but I think that maybe this will draw more attention to the challenges they do face in Orlando. Maybe this will bring to light the homophobia that still exists in Orlando, that this could happen anywhere, is just really shocking and heartbreaking. And I think it's reminded a lot of us that, whatever Omar Mateen's mental state was, whatever his motivations were, and we still don't know for sure, it draws attention to the fact that, horrible, awful things can still happen to us.
Have you seen the event change over the last 8 years?
There aren't really any changes that I can think of. There aren't really any major changes. I imagine maybe it draws more people now. I think there are a lot more contingents in the parade. They have a lot. I think they probably have more money to spend, but that I can't really think of any huge changes. I think, one thing that I've been thinking about as far as Pride is one thing that is still the same, is that it still means a lot to people to be able to come to Pride. And I think that, when I talk to young people at Pride events, a lot of them are from places like Fresno or Modesto, or, places
Small town California.
small towns outside of San Francisco. And it still means a lot to them to be able to come to a place where they can be themselves. And I think for a lot of them, maybe it's the first time they've ever had that experience. And I think that, when you live in San Francisco for a few years, you can maybe take that for granted. So I think that's, if anything has changed, maybe it's, we're drawing more people from places like that.
We're going to take a look now at a video from Grace from the San Francisco Police Department. She's the public information spokesperson and public information officer. So let's take a look at that now.
Obviously, with the attacks in Orlando and with the situation in LA, we take into account those incidents. We work with our FBI and our local law enforcement partners to see if there are any threats to the public. At this time, there's no threats that we have. We want to assure everyone that it's safe. However, as with any event that with a lot of people that come to the city, we will have increased patrol and increased presence in order to accommodate the thousands and thousands of people that will be coming to the city. With the situation in LA, it was a regular citizen who called 911 about a suspicious person in a vehicle, and that's how we were notified. You never know what can happen from just one notification to police, so that's why we always say, if you see something, say something.
What do you think about that whole idea of putting it back on the people? Hey, pay attention, be watchful.
Well, I think people should absolutely be careful, and they should pay attention to their surroundings. But I think the reality is, for a lot of people, when you're at Pride, having a good time with your friends, you're not necessarily paying attention to what's going on outside your circle of friends. And I think it's not really specific, well, what are we looking for? I think these violent incidents can happen really quickly, and you may not see it coming at all. And I think it is really important for people to kind of,
Be aware.
be aware of what's going on around them. But even then, I think that, sometimes there's maybe nothing you can do. And if something is bad is going to happen, it's going to happen. I think it's just important to kind of keep that in mind.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and thank you for watching us. Please email us with your questions at newsupnow.com, or you can see us on Facebook. I'll see you next time on California Up Now. I'm Claudia Iseman.